We all agree that in business, if you are going to be successful, you need to sell successfully. You got to focus on selling. But here we are facing a major challenge, and it is that most people somehow don't view selling as an appealing activity. And even those who don't have any negative beliefs about selling, they're not very good at it, or they don't consider their chances of being effective at selling to be very high. So, why is that? And I would argue that it's because people don't understand that selling is really the last step or the last phase after four phases. And most entrepreneurs and freelancers don't understand or not even aware of these foundational four phases. So in my digital business bootcamp, I talk about five phases. And these are the five pillars of a successful business, especially a startup. Because when you're launching a startup, you have to start from scratch, right? So these are five pillars that are the foundations. The first pillar is solution. You've got to create a solution to a problem. When people don't have a problem, they just don't spend money for the most part. Second, you've got to identify whom you're trying to serve. It is not everybody. And even if you've identified a market, you've got to segment or divide that market into smaller segments, and you can launch a marketing campaign after each segment. The third pillar or phase is the lead generation. It has to be a system that is reliable. Lead generation simply means that you've got to have something, a free gift that will entice people, your prospects, to come to you. If you don't have a free gift, they're not going to come to you. Pillar number four is when you create content that is relevant, useful, and valuable so that they engage with your brand, with your company, with your products, with your personnel. And finally, we have the sales process, sales conversions. So you can see that sales is really the last step in a five-step process. And people who, and this is 99% of people, freelancers and entrepreneurs, people who don't understand that you've got to do these first four steps properly in order to be good at selling. Well, no wonder they're afraid of selling. But from my perspective, selling is the natural, logical conclusion of a five-step process. And it is natural for the prospect as well as for the salesperson. But as the salesperson, you've got to be the leader. You've got to guide the customer through these five phases, right? And to the extent that you're able to do that, then the sales transaction is the natural, inevitable result of your planning and your execution. It is the natural result. You don't have to push people. You don't have to use psychological tactics to coerce people into buying your product. It is the natural thing to do. It is the logical thing to do. It is the only thing to do. If you've done the first four steps properly. Now, I call them steps, but they're actually phases, right? It's not just a simple step. You've got to spend a lot of time developing your solution. You've got to spend a lot of time researching the markets and figure out like who is most desperate and the most starving for your solution. You've got to do lead generation, and you've got to create a system for doing so. You've got to create content, and that's like a whole endeavor in itself. And finally, if you've done your homework and you've satisfied the conditions for these first four phases, then you're ready to sell. Then you've earned the right to sell to them. Then the prospects will be able and willing to listen to you because you've done all the work. The problem is that a lot of people who go into business, they focus on their problem, which is making money, and they don't really think about their business from the customer's perspective. So the digital business blueprint or the digital business bootcamp really shows you that you only have to take care of four pillars, four phases in order to have a successful business. And if you do it that way, step by step, you're basically guaranteed to succeed in business. It's not that hard. You don't need to get an MBA degree. You just have to follow this recipe, which I'm explaining in the digital business bootcamp.